Oh, I got this pop-up.
Did the pop-up tell you we're streaming?
No, it said something about a third party. So,
Yeah, the third party is your custom
but
live
it
streaming
didn't
service.
it didn't name the third party.
Oh, well,
So,
that's because you get three of them:
oh,
LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So that's
okay.
yeah, you're streaming. You're
Okay,
streaming.
so we're streaming live. I'm looking at my Facebook, getting confused because I got too many posts. Okay, so welcome everybody. I got one more thing to do before we start. Okay, thank you. I had to hit the record button, but I appreciate people tuning in on our Zoom platform and also on our various social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. I think that's all. But anyway, also thank you people who are interested from the continental US and then also parts around the world. I know we're talking about mostly Hawaii, but we appreciate you tuning in. This is Lance Luke, Martin Pea, part of Ask the Building Expert webinar series. We usually talk about buildings and construction. We had a couple of people who approached us saying, hey, you talked about building construction and things like that. You know, can you talk about major disasters in Hawaii? I said, yeah, sure. We'll add that to our list. So now's the time. So let me go through briefly. This webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection, National Building Expert, Ask the Building Expert series. We have these webinar series that we do twice a month, and it's free. We get to talk story. Also, want to mention that if you guys are on social media and you have your own story to tell about a major disaster, such as a hurricane, your own experience, feel free to post it or let us know. If you're on a Zoom platform, you want to talk, we can open up your microphone. Want it to be more join the conversation kind of thing rather than me just talking all the time. I decided I'm going to have Martin do some talking too, since I talk most of the time. So I may ask him questions or maybe give him a short quiz, see if he passes, or see if he's even awake, paying attention. But when we live in Hawaii, right? And a lot of people that aren't in Hawaii want to travel to Hawaii because of our beautiful beaches and lush green mountains and all this good things to look at, tropical paradise and all that. But believe it or not, Hawaii has actually a series of major disasters in the past, and things are going to be coming in the future that we don't know about yet. But we've experienced disasters such as tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, wildfires, and even volcano eruption. But I won't talk too much about the volcano. Um, so we're gonna kind of do not really a deep dive, kind of a shallow dive in talking about different aspects of major disasters. Well, what is a definition of a major disaster anyway, or a natural disaster? According to FEMA and Homeland Office of Homeland Security, it's any kind of major calamity that uh, costs either a lot of money or lives, and also the federal government needs to get involved by uh, helping or providing funds to rebuild, clean up, and that kind of thing. So that's basically what the definition is. Now, before I go into the formal part of the presentation, I'm going to touch briefly on each type of major disaster, and then we can kind of talk about it later. So, as you know, Hawaii is not one island, but a series of multiple islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And because we're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, we're exposed to big water features such as a tsunami, right? And if you don't know, if you look at the map of the Pacific Ocean and you see where the ocean is in relation to the continental United States, North America, South America, right, on one side, and then on the other side, right, going east, you have Japan, Philippines, and Australia, and New Zealand. So that area that consists of the Pacific Ocean is commonly known as the Pacific Ring of Fire. And why is it called that? It's because that whole region is basically known for seismic and volcanic activity. So there's a lot of volcanoes and underground things that we can't even see, and it always poses a threat. So if we have a big earthquake, say in California, the ripple effect could actually affect Hawaii and cause a tsunami. So California, Alaska, Aleutian Islands, or on the opposite side, Japan. And that's why every time there's a major earthquake, you see on the news that, oh, it did not cause a tsunami in Hawaii. Okay, so that's the first thing that people check for. So in Hawaii, one of the most devastating tsunamis in Hawaii's history occurred on April 1st, 1946. And there was an earthquake near the Aleutian Islands. It was huge. It was 8.1 on the Richter scale. It triggered a massive tsunami, and it affected Hilo on the Big Island. And there was property damage, loss of life, and all that. So because of that, Hawaii had implemented advanced warning systems and more community preparedness to mitigate the impact of future tsunamis. That's why after that, they upped the tsunami warning systems, and they publish maps of tsunami zones. And so when people heard that there was a tsunami coming, is their house in a tsunami zone or not? And if so, they got to move to higher ground. Okay, so I heard stories about the big tsunami in Hilo, and people didn't believe it was April 1st, and they didn't understand what was going on. So when the water receded, a lot of people actually went out to catch fish and stuff, and it was too late for them when the big waves came. Okay, so that was a big one. We haven't had any big tsunami after that, and hopefully we don't. Now let's talk about earthquakes. There's earthquakes all the time. Every day there's an earthquake, but most of the time you can't feel it. And usually it's coming from the Big Island, where they have the most active volcanoes there. So there's these tectonic plates. I don't know if you remember geography class or in high school, when you learn about these moving plates or moving masses of land, and when they move together, it causes an earthquake. They move up and down mostly, or separate. And then most of the seismic activity is minor. We don't even feel it, but there's some that were major, like in 1975 Kalapana earthquake. I know we were around then, was 7.2 magnitude and caused extensive damage on the Big Island. I mean, it was bad. We lost some beaches and a lot of land, and I even went to check the area out afterwards because my cousin lived on the Big Island, so he took us on a tour. So after that, the construction and building practices got upgraded and implemented to include more measures to withstand hurricanes, such as continuous load path features and the building code change. And now we're getting to where we need to be. Next thing is the hurricanes. We'll talk more about that, but there were two hurricanes that were major in Hawaii, at least, during the time Martin and I have been around. There was Hurricane Eva in 1982, and then Hurricane Iniki in 1992. And I experienced personally, Martin too, both of these hurricanes, and we'll talk more about that throughout the webinar. And then the last thing is the wildfires. And before the Lahaina wildfire, we always heard about all these wildfires on the mainland and stuff, and it didn't come close to home until the Lahaina fires. So that was a pretty big thing. But before I continue, I just want to mention that although not in Hawaii, we had Hurricane Helene, which affected 6 states, and so far 128, 130 people. I mean, I'm getting different counts from the news, but at least 128 people have died in that, affected 6 major states. And the last time I checked, they're saying it was a Category 4 hurricane, and I'm getting different numbers as far as the cost to build or rebuild, clean up and rebuild, from 15 to 25 billion dollars to, I got another quote that came in from another source that it could go as high as 110 billion. I mean, that's huge, considering the Lahaina fire. You're looking at $4 to $5 billion. Okay, so and then I have a story to tell about volcano damage too, but let's go right into it. I just gave you a brief overview. We talked about definition of major disasters. Some of these images look pretty scary, especially like on the Big Island when you see these roads with big cracks, and some of the cracks are so big, half a car could fall in it. Tsunamis. Okay, I talked about the Hilo tsunami in 1946, and hopefully we don't have that such magnitude again. But I mean, you live in Hawaii, it's coastal communities. All these communities are basically oceanfront, right? The entire Hilo town is basically oceanfront, and then even in Kona, you have ocean. You drive along Ali'i Drive from the beginning of Kona, where the Kona harbor is. It's all ocean. So basically, a good part of Kona is oceanfront property. And then in 1960, we had this tsunami that came. It's called the Chilean tsunami because it came from Chile. There was some kind of earthquake over there. That also caused damage too. Now, earthquakes. I'm not sure if you guys ever drove around, even on the mainland. You see cracks in the road, even in the highway, but they're necessarily not from earthquakes. They're due to a freeze thaw if they're, you know, small cracks. But when you see bigger cracks where the road's lifting and all that, this is all from the ground moving. This is caused by earthquakes or seismic activity. And there was in 1868, now we'll go back in history, you know, all of us weren't even born at that time, but 1868, there was a Ka'u earthquake, and Ka'u is the south part of the Big Island, right? It's a lot of dry desert area. There was a big earthquake in that area. Fortunately, it wasn't like a big city that caused major damage, but it did cause damage. But during those times, we didn't have the technology to document things like we have, you know, cell phones, or anybody can easily take videos and pictures and all that. So the picture you see is an old one. I don't know who took it. And then I talked to you about the Kalapana earthquakes in 2018. The Kalapana earthquake, it wasn't like one earthquake. There was a major one, and there was a series of other earthquakes that happened during that time. But I remember when I was a kid going to Queen's Bath and visiting Black Sand Beach and everything, and you know, because of the earthquake and other natural disasters, like it was a volcano, the Queen's Bath, and we used to go swimming, dive off the rocks. The Queen's Bath and the Black Sand Beach was all disappeared. It got covered up with lava. So yeah, but that's the force of nature. You can't fight it. Let me go back and well, this isn't an earthquake story, but it's a volcano story. So a lot of times when a volcano erupts, it causes an earthquake. But I was hired as an expert witness on, there was one house where it got damage from the volcano, but there was no physical damage where, as opposed to a volcano comes to the house and all of a sudden the whole house burns down. Okay, so there's no house left, or it partially got burnt, or it just got covered up with lava. Okay, this is a case where the house was still standing and it didn't look like it was damaged. So the homeowner filed an insurance claim, and the insurance company denied the claim, saying, you don't have any damage, not like your neighbor across the street where their whole house burnt from, you know, the hot lava. And so it ended up in litigation. And I was hired, so we flew up to the Hilo area, and we drove down the road, and it was kind of eerie because where there were houses on both sides of the road and past the stop sign, there were no houses. There was just acres and acres of black lava where the houses used to be. So naturally, all those houses got destroyed. But then the house that I had to inspect was still standing. So that's, and the guy didn't live there. He moved out. So we had to, you know, walk through 4 feet of weeds and all that to actually get to the house. We had to kind of hike in. But imagine the house still standing, but when I investigated, they had evidence that there was damage from the volcano, not the hot lava, but you know, when the volcano erupts, you got all these caustic chemicals in the air and all that. So that's what happened. So the house had a metal roof, and they had solar panels on the roof. They must have had like 28 solar panels. And the solar panels, the frame of the panel is all metal, right? So I looked and I could see signs of corrosion on all the metal, including the roof. And then all that was because of the volcano, right? And then all your metal doorknobs, exterior trim, light fixtures, all got corrosion. It's not normal. And believe it or not, inside the house, when I took apart some electrical outlets and look at the wiring was corroded too. So the air got in from the volcano and affected all the exterior metal components of the house, including the interior. So I took pictures. I had to write a report. The attorney hired a scientist, UH professor from University of Hilo, and I told him what areas to scrape and take samples, and he had these little vials that he would put the samples in and then send it to his laboratory. And I said, we need the results to show that the emissions coming out of the volcano is similar to the same substance that is on the house components. And I don't know exactly what happened in the end because I heard from the attorney that hired me that they settled it. So um, when it was basically zero claim, they must have got big money to actually fix the house up. Even the paint, the exterior paint that the insurance company wasn't willing to pay for, I added the cost of a new roof, painting, new solar panels, all that stuff. So that's my volcano story. So if you hear people saying the house didn't get damaged from a volcano, it's still standing, well, it may or may not be true. Okay, so let's talk about hurricanes. Hurricane Eva, 1982. I always remember looking at the newspaper the next day, and they had a picture of the West Coast, the main street. I think it was Farrington Highway, where they had all these down utility poles. I mean, it was like kind of scary. So you could see the damage that this hurricane has caused. So that was in 1982. So in 1982, the wind speed was like between 100 and 120 miles per hour, which is fast because if you're in your car driving, I don't know if you ever drove 100 miles an hour or 120 miles an hour. I've been in a car where we drove that fast, and that's fast. So can you imagine the wind blowing that fast? So during that time, 2,345 buildings were destroyed, and the equivalent of today's dollars, it was $1 billion in damage. So that was pretty significant. So I'll give you a story about Eva. I guess in a little while. I want to talk about the next one. There's a hurricane Iniki in 1992, which is like about 10 years after Hurricane Eva. It's like kind of weird. And the wind speed was about 145 miles an hour. It caused like so much damage on the island of Kauai. At that time, it was $3 billion in damages. Now, today's dollars, it may be 7 to 8 billion. I'm not sure. My math might be a little off. But after that hurricane, the government decided to implement more hurricane tracking preparedness measures, and then also emphasize the importance of early evacuation and also securing infrastructure. And then in 2018, there was Hurricane Lane, which actually affected Kauai also. So you have these streams that all of a sudden turn into rushing, raving rivers, and so fast they found at the end of the stream they found cars and parts of houses and all that. That's how bad it was. So before I get into wildfires, I wanted to talk about Hurricane Eva and any experiences. Martin, do you have any experiences from Hurricane Eva or Iniki?
Well, that was about 42 years ago, yeah. And that was actually when my oldest son was born, and he was born in October. And I think the um, Hurricane Eva hit us in November. So we've always lived out on the windward side up in the Ko'olau. So I mean, from my perspective, I kind of remember a lot of buckling down. Yeah, one thing during those times, everybody would put their the the blue tape or whatever kind of tapes on the windows to try to keep them from getting smashed in and then yeah, damaging inside. So I know we had to do all kinds of protection and that kind of stuff to protect from that particular situation at that time. So it was, I mean, it was pretty harrowing because we were, my wife and I was just a young couple, just had our firstborn, and so I mean, I don't remember a lot of the details, but I know that at that time, I mean, it was a big thing, I think, for the whole island to buckle down on that. And of course, Kauai was always the place where it seemed to get hit the worst, whether it was with Eva and then Iniki. And then, I mean, that's why even now we still get the remnants of those hurricanes, even around in our neighborhoods, or for practically every neighborhood on every island. You get chickens all over the place that just kind of got released from Kauai and different places on each island, and pretty soon they're all over, and they're still all over. So I mean, there's all kinds of interesting impacts that these disasters have on us. And it's, I think the main thing from our experience over the years, whether it's even in the hurricanes or tsunamis, is just how well we prepared for the thing. So the other thing too, you mentioned about Kalapana. I mean, that whole side, our whole family is all from Kalapana, and all our properties used to be all my my aunts and uncles' properties. Uncle Robert, Keliho Malu, all their properties was all along the the old Black Sand Beach. And then when they had all those eruptions and all that, I mean, it basically, it moved the beach out a mile or two, and kind of wiped out most of our property areas. So it's, I mean, the impact is so significant for the, the locals, the homeowners, and all that kind of stuff. And then, I mean, you and I know all these things just going to create more costs to insure our places and whatever, because of all these, all the things the insurance company is going to have to pay out to recover. So the future, even like based on Helene and our Lahaina one, is going to be, we're in the end, the consumer is the one that has to take care and protect themselves and pay the price for their survival. So, and yeah, anyway, over the years, like you say, we've had all kinds of experience with tsunamis, hurricanes, the volcanoes, you name them, we've seen them, and we've all experienced them in some way. So that's kind of where we've been in these last 50 or 70 years we've been on the planet. So
All right, thank you. That was nice. Were you living in Kaneohe at the time?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The whole family is all born and raised here on the Kaneohe Huimanu area over here. So yeah, the other thing too was power outs. you know, I think we didn't have power for maybe, I don't know if it was a, you know, 5 days to a week and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah.
In those olden days, the power lines coming over the Ko'olaus would, you know, they'd just get shook up a little bit and then your power was out for days on this side. But they've improved that.
Well, I was living in Kaneohe too, close to you. I was living on Kahuipa Street. I had just bought a townhouse in 1980.
Oh yeah, that's when we were out this side,
And it
80,
was up Kahuipa
81.
Street, and you know these townhouses, two-story townhouses with the open carport in the front, and then
Mm.
there's a little front yard, and I had a tree, and I remember when the hurricane hit, it was so loud because we had jalousie windows. The wind um and the thunder and all that. I mean, it was pretty scary. And then afterwards, it was so quiet. That was another eerie thing. But I remember having to go to work the next day, so I go out and the tree that was in front of my house had fallen, this big tree, and blocked my car in my garage, so I couldn't get out. So I found this hacksaw. I started hacksawing branches, but after 2 hours, I kind of gave up. But then um, one of my neighbors had a chainsaw, so he helped. That tree must have weighed several thousand pounds. So we cut off enough of the branches so we're able to move the tree a little so I could get my car out and go to work. Um, and that was kind of a weird situation. I remember uh, my cat was gone for a week. We didn't have electricity for a week, but I had a uh, gas propane barbecue. So I'd bring it out, and neighbors would come with frozen food, and oh here, cook this, cook, you know. So I became like a chef, barbecue guy. Um, but the other thing was my uh, cousin who lived down the street by Windward Mall. Uh, my mom had called me and said, "Oh, your cousin needs help. The roof blew off." So I figured, part of their roof, you know, may have blow off in the wind. So I drive down to the house, and the house had no roof. The house was at the end of the street, and the roof blew off. The entire roof lifted off, and it was in it blew off, and it landed on Cam Highway. So the morning newspaper, I remember the front page had the picture of Cam Highway with a roof sitting in the middle of the road, and that was my cousin's roof. I couldn't believe it. She needed help moving there. Her whole house was she was renting. So I go in the kitchen, and her big 27 cube refrigerator was turned upside down. And I didn't know how that happened. How the refrigerator turned upside down, it was still in the same place. I still remember that. And they had a baby crib that they built inside the bedroom, and you couldn't fit to take it out. So I used a chainsaw, and I started cutting down the hallway wall of the house to get the crib out. And I think my cousin said, "Hey, what are you doing? You know, you're wrecking the house. It's they're gonna charge us for it, for the damage." And I said, "No, the whole house is like a total disaster, so it doesn't matter. We got to get your crib out." And fortunately, uh, they had relatives that lived down the street, so we moved everything out of the house and stored it in their lanai. Uh, yeah, I remember that. That was the craziest times. So, and then Hurricane Iniki, I was living in Kailua at the time, and the winds were like super strong. I mean, anytime you experience a hurricane, it's like scary. And then the next day, my phone basically, uh, I ran out of battery because people kept calling me to inspect their houses. And then I remember going to Kauai, and I said, I don't know which house is which because all these houses are gone. How do we know? And then even the insurance adjusters were confused and saying, I don't know where the house is. There's no mailbox or nothing. There's no house with the address on. So we had to go look at survey maps and all that. And yeah, it was like kind of a weird experience.
Yeah, crazy times, yeah.
Yeah. Even like when I had to go to Kona to inspect earthquake damage from buildings, I couldn't imagine. I mean, I was thinking, man, if this thing was even worse, this building probably wouldn't be here, or it would be half the building. So let's talk about wildfires. That's a big topic. We had like Maui wildfires in 2019, believe it or not. I mean, people think Lahaina fire was the first fire on Maui. Not so. They had um, a previous fire on Maui up in the Kula area. They had a fire, and then when Lahaina had the wildfire, they had a fire, believe it or not, in Kula, which started the Kula fire started before Lahaina. So as you know, the Maui fire was a huge disaster, um, and it's still not settled yet as far as compensation and all that. I mean, you're looking at 4 billion. I'm thinking it's not 4 billion. It's going to be more than that. Insurance companies fighting that the whole legal case is now in the Supreme Court. I don't think it's going to get resolved, but that's just my, my take on it. So there's after the Lahaina fire, there was Lahaina Strong and all these other organizations that got together that really helped the Lahaina community. To me, sometimes more so than the government, but that's a topic for another discussion. But there was, I mean, never did anybody see the community involvement and how people just got together and offered their help, offered money, uh, offered clothes, food, and all that. It was amazing to see the community help, and that's a testament to the people in Lahaina, on Maui, and also in Hawaii. We don't want any natural disasters, but it comes, and we have to be prepared for it. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is be prepared. Talk to government. The government can only do so much. If the government tells you to evacuate and you're in a tsunami zone and a tsunami comes, it's kind of your own fault that you didn't evacuate, right? Or a hurricane. You got to take measures to protect your own house, right? So if you need more information, go to our website. We have information on hurricane preparedness, hurricane ties, different things like that, roofing. What you missed, we've given previous webinars before on all kinds of things: roofing, concrete spalling, cast iron piping, electrical. It's also on our website. All our webinars are recorded and put up on our website for free. You don't need a Netflix account. You don't need to pay. It's there to help you. What's coming up? We got other webinars coming up. Kahana Sunset, coastal erosion, and then Let's Talk BS, which is not what you think. It's about BS is building safety. After that is build your home to protect from a wildfire. I decided to do that to help not only people on the mainland, but foremost the people in Lahaina. And then in December, home safety for the holidays, talking about electrical cords, Christmas tree, safety and all that. So I don't know if people realize, but the Christmas trees are actually kind of like kindling for a fire. And that's kind of scary, especially if it's dried out, right? So we got a couple of things. Here's our website, askbuildingexpert.now.site. We have all kind of special websites on different things: building code, contractor licensing, fire life safety, asphalt, roofing. Yeah, there's like too numerous to mention. Go check it out. We have blogs on different aspects of building and construction and condos, webinars that I talked to you about. I'm sure you can find one or two that you like and you can watch it on your own time. I know people are busy. And then we have books. If you want books, you want to read a book, or you want just to look for information, we have these books are available on our website for free. You can download it. They're also on sale on Amazon, but if you want to get it free, you go to our website. I even wrote a book about Lahaina wildfire. So that's pretty interesting. And then I have a special website called Lahaina1.com on trying to provide information to help rebuild Lahaina. So we offer consultation services for free to help the community. And now we get to the Q&A part. I know I offered on Facebook if you had any stories about a hurricane. So before we get into that, Martin, I'm gonna.
Yep.
I saw two things on Facebook. Okay, so let me read that. So Heather wrote, appreciate the opportunity to share these incredible stories. Facing adversity with a low spirit is what makes our community strong. Thank you for that. And then Gareth says, not much to tell. I spent most of the time huddled up and covering inside my house and shuddering every time I heard the wind blow and saw the windows rattling. Thanks for asking. Anyway, it's good oral history. Speaking of windows rattling, when I experienced the two hurricanes, Eva and Iniki, we had jalousie windows, and no matter how tight you close them, wind can still get in, even water too. And then if it doesn't close tight, it just starts rattling like the glass slats are gonna crack. So it's kind of a scary feeling to hear your house like sounding like it's falling apart. But then you hear the other sound of the wind and the thunder and all that. I mean, it's so loud. It's almost like you're standing in back of a airplane ready to take off at the airport. That's how basically loud it is. You can't hear anything else. And then when the hurricane's over, you could hear a pin drop. It's such a eerie. I mean, I don't know if you experienced that, but that's just the feeling that I got. But Martin, we got any questions from anybody or comments? Before that, there's a Q&A from Connie. What kind of windows hold up best with a hurricane? Hurricane-proof windows. Now, I mean, in the old days, they have jalousies and your old single hung, double hung windows. Those are like, especially because the glass isn't safety glass. Okay, so now they have these windows that are specially designed. The frame and the glass itself. The glass is like shatterproof, or if it's not shatterproof, it's safety glass, okay, tempered glass and all that. Coastal Windows and other companies have these upgraded windows that when you install them, they're basically can't protect from a hurricane. The same windows used in high-rise buildings, it's that type that you want, because um, the windows that aren't rated for hurricane, if you have flying debris like rocks or pieces of trees or whatever, it can just go right through your window and into your house. So thank you for the question. That was interesting. So Martin, we got others that came in.
Yes, Lance, we had a couple that came in earlier. So let me go through them real quick with you. What the first one is, considering the interconnected nature of natural disasters, such as the potential for hurricane triggering landslides or wildfires, how can Hawaii enhance its overall disaster resilience by adopting a more integrated approach to emergency planning and response?
Well, most of it is actually government to help and set up systems, because the individuals aren't gonna, for the most part, go research on their own and find out what to do in case of a natural disaster. And the government of Hawaii, the city and the state, they share information with government entities on the mainland, city, state, and even national. So they're the entities that get the most up-to-date information. The other thing is that when the government releases the information, please follow it. Like when the bulletins come across, prepare for a hurricane. You got to make sure your house has hurricane ties, hurricane protection, all this stuff. So I know there's a lot of old houses that aren't, hurricane ready per se, and that's just extra effort, cost and money to do a little more to get your house ready. The newer houses now are required by code to follow the codes, because the codes get updated. The building codes get updated every 3 years, and it gets more stringent. It doesn't get less stringent as the years go by. So that's on the hurricane. On the landslides, you can't do much. I mean, if you yourself have a single family house on a hill, I mean, there's mitigation strategies you can do, but sometimes there's so much water that no matter what you do, it's still not enough. So you gotta maybe call engineers to take a look at what you have. And the last thing is the wildfires. There's special mitigation strategies that you can take, and hopefully the houses in Lahaina are built following those strategies. Use more fire-rated building materials, and when you have your landscaping, you got to put a barrier. Don't have a lot of bushes and trees too close to your house, because when it's very windy and there's a fire going on, what starts fires is the embers blowing around and landing on people's roofs. And then next thing you know, it starts off at one house, and now you got 20 or 50 houses on fire, because the glowing embers are still flying around, and there's thousands and thousands of these embers flying around. It's almost like you have thousands of matches that are lit, blowing around and landing on people's roofs and yard. I mean, all it takes is one to land in a yard where the grass is dry, or in a tree, and set off the tree on fire, and then it could spread to your house. So there's information online. There's information on my website about building a house or protecting your house from a wildfire. So I'm glad. Thank you for asking that.
Okay, thank you, Lance. This one looks like it came from a off-island visitor. It's asking, in the aftermath of major disasters, how have the people of Hawaii, especially in Lahaina, come together to support one another and rebuild, fostering a sense of community, strength, and unity?
Well, it's been proven already by social media and news reports, either online or printed, or even even in newspapers and magazines. Even I've read stories that appeared in national magazines about, well, first the story was about the wildfire. The second story was how the community got together. So there's a lot of information out there. The community is still together, which is a good thing. But things have changed now. Instead of uh, talking about the cleanup, which basically is almost completed, now how do we rebuild? How do we get the government involved to act faster so we can know what the building codes are and what we have to follow? I mean, um, the residential single family building, people are starting to build already because they've issued a bunch of permits, and some houses are already under construction. But remember, in Lahaina, there's both residential and commercial. So all those commercial buildings on Front Street that's between the street and the water, they don't even know if they can rebuild or not because the city hasn't provided any direction. You hear stories about, because sea level rise, now we got to build 3 feet above the sea level. Okay, so we can do that. Oh, but we don't even know if you're allowed to build because you're too close to the water. And we have this coastal plain protocol that you have to follow. So nothing's really set in stone yet. So all these commercial building owners are just waiting. Some have given up. Some said, forget it. I'm not going to rebuild. I'm just going to open up somewhere else. So it's kind of hard. I don't see the situation getting resolved in the next couple of years. So it's going to take longer. So that's Lahaina.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Lance. That's a good update on Lahaina side. The last question that's come in is asking about some basics. What are the basic steps that residents in Hawaii can take to ensure their safety during a natural disaster, like a tsunami, or an earthquake, or a hurricane, or wildfire?
Oh, it's a long list there. But so
I'm sure you've got an
basically,
answer.
basically in a tsunami, there's not much you can do because if your house is on the beach or located in a tsunami evacuation zone, there's nothing you can do to protect your house. There's no magic thing you can buy at Home Depot where you cover your house up and you're okay if a tsunami comes. So there's basically the answer to the tsunami is evacuate if you're in that zone, right? That's the only thing. Go to a shelter, go to a higher ground, whatever. An earthquake, similarly, there's not much you can do either because the tsunami, at least you get the warning, right? You get advanced warning. Earthquake, you get no warning. It's just gonna come. Or you can get a warning where the geological survey people will say, earthquake's coming soon. When? Oh, well, we don't know. We just detected a lot of, unusual movement around the Kilauea volcano, Halemaumau, and all that. So, I mean, it's not an exact science. They can't predict. I heard that the volcano is going to erupt in the future, and when it does, it's going to be like a huge eruption. But we'll see. We don't know for sure. So, I mean, there's not much you can do in an earthquake except make sure your house is the earthquake and the hurricane protection kind of go together because the building code, the restriction on the building code to require protection from an earthquake applies to a hurricane also, right? So you have these metal connectors called hurricane ties where you anchor your house, and there's anchor bolts, so you anchor your foundation. Yeah, the foundation of your house to the foundation of the building per se, if it's a concrete slab, right? And then if you have a first floor, right, then you got to attach your framing to to your concrete slab, and then when the roof is put on, your roof has to be attached to the house wall by this hurricane straps, hurricane ties. It's called, the definition, engineering term is continuous load path. So what that means is a load path that's continuous. So if a big hurricane comes, it doesn't blow your roof off because your roof is attached to your house wall. And your whole house doesn't blow away because the wall of your house is attached to the foundation. So that's a simplistic answer or explanation to this whole hurricane path, continuous load path situation. So that's earthquake and hurricane. Now the wildfire is similar for mitigation, but let's say if you don't do anything to your house, but you have trees, large trees too close to your house, they should be at least 30 feet away, or you have too many bushes. I mean, I know landscaping is nice, but when you think about if a fire were to come, would I be protected? So that's why you have these barriers. You have, if you're going to have landscaping, it can't be right up to your house, because if the bush catches on fire and it's right next to your house, next thing you know, your house is on fire. So that's the situation. It's all natural disaster mitigation, we call it. And then for each type, there's mitigation procedures to follow. There's construction practices to follow. Especially now, it's very specialized, where we're rebuilding a home to protect from a wildfire. At the same time, we're protecting the house from an earthquake and hurricane, because that's already built into the building code. The building code already has built-in measures for hurricane earthquake protection. It doesn't have built-in measures for wildfire protection or mitigation. So there's talk among the makers of the building code about coming up with either incorporation into the existing building code of wildfire mitigation measures, or coming up with a separate book on the building code for wildfire protection. So they're already working on that now, because there's so many wildfires all over the place. So any other comments or questions?
There's no more questions that have come in, but I did have a comment. One thing that I've noticed more and more, probably in the last year or so, especially in our area, because there's certain areas that are considered, like you said, the tsunami area zone. So as you drive along, you can see some says entering the tsunami area or exiting the tsunami area. So that's something I've noticed, and probably just in recent years. So I see a lot more, I guess, alerts or awareness for the public of what areas they're in, if they're in a flood zone and all that kind of stuff. Although most of the flood stuff we've kind of known about for years, but like now tsunami areas and things have been shared, I guess, more so the public can kind of see, or which areas I'm in, what is the risk in this area that I'm in, and those kind of things. So I think that's one of the developments that I've noticed to help the average citizens try to prepare for those situations and events and disasters that it might occur. Yeah. So just
you're right. I've seen those blue and white signs with the wave on it, and as I'm driving around town, I drive all over the place, and I'm kind of surprised when I see the sign so far inland, and the sign says end of tsunami evacuation zone or something. I'm like, geez, can the waves get this far inland?
You're right.
So,
You're right.
I mean, you'd be surprised when you see those signs. Of course, if you're driving along, the beach area or whatever, you're going to see those signs that say tsunami evacuation zone.
Yeah, well, you're right. Even your old neighborhood, I see them going up almost up beyond Enchanted Lakes, some of those signs and zones. So I'm surprised, like you, not sure how they figure it out, but somebody must do some kind of study to figure it out. That,
Well, it's all based on engineering and stuff like that. And you figure if it's flat and a wave comes in, depends how high the wave is, right? The
Yeah.
wave can go for inland for a couple miles, right?
Miles.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how they calculate. They must have like, I guess they got to figure how tall the wave is going to be, and then how much water is going to be pushed inland.
Yeah.
So I mean,
But
this raises a interesting question about, we're leaving the tsunami discussion and we're talking about the sea level rise that has nothing to do with a tsunami, right? And the sea level rise, coastal erosion is here. It's been here for a while already. And I mean, this is probably another webinar, but we're talking about like huge glaciers melting, and when it melts, the water goes into the ocean, right? So all this gallons and gallons of water from the glaciers melting are causing the sea level to rise. And this has nothing to do with a tsunami, but this is another, I mean, I'm thinking this is going to be the next natural disaster, because the glacier is natural. When it melts, it's natural, and the sea level is rising. If there's conspiracy theories out there, but it's real. I've seen it for myself. I've seen a house fall into the beach. I'm giving a seminar on coastal erosion. 2 condo buildings are like they're trying to rebuild in the same place, but there's an argument: should we rebuild here or should we build it further back? So I mean, it's happening. So I think this was an interesting webinar topic, and I know we ran out of time, but I appreciate all you people that attended from our Zoom platform and on social media. Oh, we got one more question that came up by Nadine. Okay, I'm going to read it. Okay, hi Lance, I'm a homeowner with an old subdivision built in 1972, but I own my home since 1991. Currently, a neighbor across from me is taking me to court. His argument is that he takes care of the common area that measures approximately 7,000 square feet. He claims because he's taking care of it, he's entitled to build, which he already built illegal structures, also prone to fire due to brush surrounding the area. What should I do? I spoke to county, but there's a lack of workers. Okay, so okay, you spoke to the county, lack of workers. Okay, that's true. I don't know about the rest of it, but I think I have answers for you that will take off the webinar, because yours is a special situation, especially because there's a legal aspect involved. So I'm not an attorney, although I do play one on TV. I don't want to give you legal advice, but I can give you advice based on my experience. I'm not sure whether it's a condominium, homeowners association, what kind of restrictions you have, but it sounds weird, the situation. So I need to get more facts. So if you can email me directly, then I can kind of point you in the right direction. But thanks for asking. And thanks for tuning in. Okay, so let's wind up, and we're going to sign off and hope to see you at the next webinar. Go to our website. We've got a lot of good stuff there. All right,
Yes,
see you next time.
Nadine, you get the email right there on the screen. Yeah, Lance Luca at hawaiibuildingexpert.com. Just email him there, and he can get back to you.
You know what's weird is I don't get email.
Oh,
Something's
that one.
wrong with that. So why don't you use lanceluke1@gmail.com or save the number and if you can't get through to me, I'll give you the correct email. But thanks for your long-winded legal question. I take any questions, we're here to help. So, all right, we're ran over time. Thank you very much. We'll see you at the next webinar. Aloha and mahalo.